Hi, my name is Mike Traskos. I'm the president of Lectromec, and this is a presentation that we gave at the S&T meeting in December 2022. As you see, the presentation is on our new EWIS regulations needed for high voltage EWIS. As we know, EWIS is only Part 25 Subpart H and is encompassed in the Part 25.1700 series regulations. The guidance behind this is in AC 25.1701-1A, AC 25-27, and AC 120-0 or 102A. And obviously we have the best practices available in AS 50881, EN 3197, and ASTM F2639. With those unfamiliar with the EWIS regulations, you see the 1701 through 1733 listed here. I'm not going to go through them all. We have various articles and videos on the Lectromec website that go through and describe many of these. But this encompasses the regulatory requirements behind EWIS. We will, however, go through a couple of the important regulations and how they can be viewed from a high voltage perspective. 25.1703, which deals with the function and installation of EWIS. As you see here, this is the direct language from the regulation. Each EWIS component must be installed in any area of the aircraft, that it must be appropriate for its intended function, must be installed within limitations of the EWIS component, and perform the function for which it's intended without degradation of the airworthiness of the aircraft. Part B, selection of the wires must take into account known characteristics of the wire in relation to each installation and application. Nothing here specifically talks about a voltage rating of any of the components. However, it does say that it must perform according to limitations of the EWIS component. So inherently, without getting into the nitty-gritty, this is a voltage agnostic regulation. So it doesn't matter whether the voltage is 28 volts or 28,000 volts. This regulation still has the same applicability to the EWIS. 25.1707 deals with system separation. Specifically, this one subsection of the regulation, there are several parts, but Part A says that each EWIS must be designed and installed with adequate physical separation from other EWIS and airplane systems so that the EWIS component failure will not create a hazardous condition unless otherwise stated. For the purposes of this section, adequate physical separation must be achieved by separation distance by a barrier that provides protection equivalent to that separation distance. Again, nothing here talks about the system voltage. Nothing here discusses that a high voltage system must be separated at a greater distance than a low voltage system. It simply says that adequate physical separation must be shown. Again, voltage agnostic. If we look at system safety, again, we see the idea that it is voltage agnostic in that the EWIS must be designed and installed such that each catastrophic failure condition is extremely improbable and does not result from a single failure. Each hazardous failure condition is extremely remote. Again, voltage has no part in this. It should be considered under the analysis perspective, but it is a voltage agnostic regulation. The last regulation that I'll review here is the Part 25.1721 Protection of EWIS. This talks about the no cargo or baggage compartment containing any EWIS whose damage or failure may affect safe operation unless the EWIS is protected so that it cannot be damaged by movement of the cargo or baggage in the compartment, and its breakage or failure will not create a fire hazard. Again, we look at this and recognize that it does not have any requirement, any specific identification of what voltages are safe, which ones are unsafe, and thus this is a voltage agnostic regulation. And that's kind of the idea behind it. There were no identifications in the regulations to identify high voltage EWIS. And the idea certainly was that when the regulations were created and written, it had to be voltage agnostic because applying it to a specific defined voltage would not have made sense. And as such, what we now consider as high voltage still has the exact same requirements placed on it if the EWIS regulations are applied. In terms of safety of personnel, safety of systems, avoid hazardous failure conditions, all are still applicable regardless of what voltage it is. Now with Part 23 and Part 25 aircraft, we accept that the fuel system and their components are critical. From a e-vehicle standpoint, the fuel tank is replaced with a battery, a fuel cell, or some other energy storage technology. Fuel lines are replaced with high voltage wiring and connectors, and the engines are replaced with inverters and motors. We know that the EWIS is a critical system and should be assessed accordingly, particularly for electrical aircraft. By not applying EWIS regulations is equivalent to certifying aircraft without having the requirements on the fuel system. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to Lectromec. Thank you for your time.